The massive crystal dome that housed the Galactic Council stretched across 3 miles of the neutral moon Kepler-7. Inside, representatives from 12 of the most powerful civilizations in known space gathered for what would become one of the most important meetings in galactic history. The air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate the different atmospheric needs of dozens of alien species, creating a strange mix of scents and pressures that made even seasoned diplomats uncomfortable. Ambassador Zethkri of the Vorthak Empire stood at the center of the great chamber, his 6 legs clicking nervously against the polished floor. His insect-like body trembled slightly as hundreds of alien eyes focused on him. The Vorthak were known throughout the galaxy as excellent scouts and information gatherers, but they were also considered weak and overly cautious by the major powers. "Honored delegates," Zethkri began, his voice translated into dozens of languages by the advanced communication systems. "I come before you today with urgent news about a species that calls itself human. Our deep space scouts have been watching them for the past 5 years. What we have learned should concern every civilization in this chamber." A low rumble of dismissive sounds echoed through the assembly. Council leader Mordun of the Nexus Collective, a being made of living crystal that stood 12 feet tall, resonated with what could only be described as electronic laughter. "Ambassador, we appreciate your dedication to gathering intelligence, but surely you are not asking us to worry about mammals that only discovered faster-than-light travel 3 years ago." Captain Jake Morrison of the human diplomatic vessel Valiant sat in the observer section, trying to keep his face neutral as he listened. He was a tall man with short brown hair and steady blue eyes that had seen combat in the outer colonies. Beside him, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper took notes on her electronic pad. She was younger than Morrison, with red hair and green eyes that missed nothing. They were the only humans present at this gathering, invited as observers after humanity had made official first contact 6 months earlier. Zethkri activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images of human spacecraft, weapons, and military installations rotated slowly in the air. These mammals are not what they appear to be. Look at these weapon designs. See how their plasma cannons focus energy in ways we have never encountered. Notice how their ships are built not just for exploration, but for war. Admiral Carthex of the Hegemony Fleet leaned forward in his seat. The 7-foot-tall reptilian warrior had scales that shifted from dark green to angry red as he spoke. Impossible. No species develops advanced weapons technology without centuries of gradual progress. These humans have been in space for less than a decade. They cannot possibly pose a threat to civilizations that have ruled the stars for thousands of years. The holographic display shifted to show recordings of human military exercises. Ships moved in complex formations, firing weapons that created brilliant flashes of destruction. Ground forces coordinated attacks with precision that impressed even Zethkri's trained eye. "Watch how they fight," Zethkri insisted. "See how quickly they adapt their tactics. Notice how they use multiple weapon types in combinations we have never seen. Their soldiers fight with an aggression that speaks of long experience with warfare." Commander Velnash of the Ethereal Union floated higher in her containment field, her gas-based form shimmering with what might have been amusement. "Ambassador Zethkri, you are asking us to fear creatures that still fight wars on their own planet. Any species that cannot achieve peace among its own kind is clearly too primitive to threaten established galactic powers." Captain Morrison felt his jaw clench at the casual dismissal, but he forced himself to remain silent. The humans had come here hoping for peaceful integration into the galactic community. Starting a diplomatic incident would not help their cause. Zethkri pressed on, displaying more evidence. "Their industrial capacity is growing at rates that defy our economic models. In just 3 years, they have built over 200 spacecraft. Their mining operations on 17 different worlds produce raw materials faster than some civilizations we have monitored for decades." "Quantity does not equal quality," scoffed Senator Thrix of the Dominion Republic. his four arms gesturing dismissively. Let them build 1,000 ships. Our single dreadnoughts carry enough firepower to destroy entire fleets of primitive vessels. The Vorthak ambassador's compound eyes reflected the chamber lights as he turned to address different sections of the assembly. You are making the same mistake that lesser civilizations made when they first encountered any of your species. You see their current technology level and assume that represents their potential. But humans are different. They do not follow normal patterns of development. Explain, demanded Council Leader Mordoon, his crystal body pulsing with skeptical energy. Every other species we have studied achieved dominance on their homeworld through superior evolution or natural advantages. Humans conquered their planet through constant warfare with their own kind. They spent thousands of years fighting enemies as intelligent and resourceful as themselves. This created a species that thinks about conflict differently than any other civilization we know. Director Yaltor of the Trade Federation, a slug-like being whose species had built an empire through commerce rather than conquest, slithered forward. Even if what you say is true, they are still just one species on a handful of worlds. The combined military might of our alliance includes millions of ships and trillions of soldiers. What possible threat could they represent? Zethkri's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his people. I have studied their history extensively. When humans encounter a superior enemy, they do not surrender or negotiate. They study their opponent, learn their weaknesses, and develop new strategies to overcome them. Then they build whatever weapons or tools they need to win. This process has happened hundreds of times in their recorded history. Admiral Karthek stood up, his full height making him an imposing figure even among the diverse alien assembly. Ambassador, you are letting fear cloud your judgment. I have reviewed the technical specifications of their so-called warships. Their largest vessel carries fewer weapons than our smallest patrol craft. Their armor cannot withstand our standard plasma cannons. Their shields operate on principles we mastered centuries ago. But their weapons, Zethkri began, are impressive for such a young civilization, Karthex interrupted, but still decades behind our current technology. These mammals may eventually become a minor regional power, but they will never challenge the established order of galactic civilization. The debate continued for 3 more hours, with Zethkri presenting evidence while the major powers dismissed each concern. Captain Morrison watched the proceedings with growing frustration. It was clear that most of these civilizations saw humanity as nothing more than an interesting curiosity, hardly worth serious consideration. Lieutenant Commander Harper leaned close to Morrison and whispered, "Sir, they have no idea what they're dealing with, do they?" Morrison shook his head slightly. "They see our current capabilities and think that defines our limits. They don't understand that humans have never accepted limits as permanent conditions." Finally, Council Leader Mordoon called for a formal vote on the Vorthak proposal to establish increased monitoring and diplomatic contact with humanity. The vote was swift and decisive. 11 major civilizations voted to maintain minimal contact with humans and treat them as a minor, developing species. Only the Vorthak abstained from voting. "The Council has spoken," Mordoon announced. "Humanity will be classified as a Tier 3 developing civilization with limited contact protocols. We see no reason to treat them differently than any other emerging species." As the formal session ended and delegates began filing out of the chamber, Captain Morrison approached Ambassador Zethkri near the exit. The Vorthak diplomat looked tired and defeated. "Ambassador," Morrison said, extending his hand in the human gesture of respect that Zethkri had learned to recognize, "I want you to know that not all humans seek conflict with established galactic powers. We came here hoping for peaceful cooperation and mutual benefit." Zethkri studied Morrison's face carefully. Unlike many species, humans were remarkably easy to read once you understood their facial expressions. He saw sincerity there, but also something that worried him. a calm confidence that suggested this human was not afraid of the civilizations that had just dismissed his species. "I believe you, Captain Morrison," Zethkri replied, his translation device making his clicking speech understandable. "But I fear my colleagues have made a grave error in judgment today. They see your current technology and assume they understand your potential. They do not realize that humans are perhaps the first species they have encountered that might actually be more dangerous than they appear." Morrison nodded slowly. "We'll do everything we can to prove that cooperation is more beneficial than conflict, Ambassador. But I want you to know something that might help you understand humans better. We have a saying on Earth: peace through strength. We believe the best way to avoid war is to be so prepared for it that nobody wants to start." 1. Zethkri's compound eyes reflected sudden understanding. "And if someone does?" 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council dismissed the Vorthak warnings about humans. Admiral Carthex of the Hegemony Fleet sat in his command chair aboard the massive battleship destroyer, studying star charts of human territory. The reptilian commander had decided it was time to test these mammals and show the galaxy that the hegemony remained the dominant military force in known space. "Navigation! Set course for the Proxima system," Carthex ordered, his scaled fingers drumming against his armrest. "We will conduct a routine patrol through human space and remind these creatures of their proper place in the galactic order." Captain Dexmore, his second-in-command, activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, form standard intimidation formation. 12 heavy cruisers should be more than enough to convince these mammals to show proper respect." The Proxima system contained 3 planets that humans had turned into mining colonies over the past 2 years. New Houston Station orbited the largest planet, serving as the administrative center for over 50,000 human colonists. The system produced rare metals that Earth needed for expanding their space fleet, making it one of humanity's most important outer colonies. Ben Collins stood on the observation deck of New Houston Station, watching his morning coffee steam in the recycled air. The former Marine-turned-colony administrator had gray hair and weathered hands that spoke of years spent building civilization in harsh places. At 55, he had thought his fighting days were behind him. The approaching alien fleet would prove him wrong. "Sir, we have contact," announced Communications Officer Janet Mills from the station control room. 12 large ships just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They're heading straight for us." Collins set down his coffee and walked quickly to the control room. The main display screen showed the incoming alien vessels, their dark hulls gleaming with weapon ports that could level cities. "Have they responded to our standard greeting?" "Nothing yet, sir," Mills replied, her fingers working across her console. "Wait, incoming transmission." The screen flickered and showed Admiral Carthex in all his intimidating glory. The 7-foot reptilian wore ceremonial battle armor that made him look even more dangerous. His yellow eyes glowed with arrogant confidence as he delivered his ultimatum. "Primitive mammals of the human species," Carthex began, his voice carrying the tone of someone addressing lower life forms. "I am Admiral Carthex of the Hegemony Fleet. You will immediately evacuate all personnel from this system. The Hegemony has decided to incorporate these worlds into our territory. You have 6 standard hours to comply with this order." Ben Collins felt his jaw tighten as he looked around the control room. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the colony's chief scientist, had gone pale. Her hands shook slightly as she checked evacuation protocols on her tablet. Engineer Paul Carter was already calculating how long it would take to safely shut down the mining operations. None of them looked happy about abandoning. "Years of hard work. Send a reply," Collins ordered, stepping in front of the communications screen. Years of military training had taught him to stay calm under pressure, even when facing impossible odds. "This is Administrator Ben Collins of New Houston Colony," he said, looking directly into the camera. "You are in sovereign human space without permission. These colonies contain over 50,000 civilian men, women, and children. Any evacuation would require several days to complete safely. We request that you withdraw and contact Earth Command through proper diplomatic channels. Carthex's laugh was a harsh sound that came through the speakers like breaking glass. You dare make demands of the hegemony fleet? Your pathetic species has no authority here. Evacuate now or be destroyed with your worthless settlements. Collins cut the transmission and immediately activated the emergency communication array. The quantum transmitter sent a priority signal through hyperspace toward Earth, where Admiral Kevin Stone commanded the Fifth Fleet from his flagship Liberty. "Ben, this is Kevin," came Stone's voice after a tense 2-minute delay. "We received your transmission. I'm 3 hours out with the Fifth Fleet. Whatever you do, hold your position and buy us time." "Understood, Admiral," Collins replied. "We'll do what we can." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her tablet with worried eyes. "Ben, the evacuation transports won't arrive for at least 18 hours. Even if we started loading people now, we couldn't get everyone off these planets in time." Collins activated the colony-wide communication system. His voice reached every settlement, mining station, and orbital platform in the system. "All residents, this is Administrator Collins. We have hostile alien forces demanding our evacuation. Earth Command is sending help, but we need to defend ourselves until they arrive. All civilian personnel report to emergency shelters. All defense personnel report to battle stations." The human colonies were not defenseless. Earth Command had learned from humanity's violent history and equipped every outer settlement with military-grade defensive systems. Orbital weapon platforms surrounded each planet, armed with railguns that could fire tungsten slugs at tremendous speeds. Missile batteries hidden in asteroid bases could launch devastating attacks against approaching enemies. Fighter squadrons stationed at each major facility were ready to engage any threat. Commander Rick Foster took command of the Orbital Defense Network from his position aboard Defense Platform Alpha. The stocky former Navy officer had been looking forward to a quiet assignment protecting miners and scientists. Instead, he found himself facing the largest alien military force humans had ever encountered. "All platforms, this is Foster," he announced over the tactical network. "We have 12 heavy cruisers inbound. Intelligence reports indicate they have superior shielding and energy weapons. But they've never faced human railgun technology. Target their forward shields and prepare for rapid-fire sequences." The hegemony ships moved into attack formation, their massive hulls bristling with plasma cannons and particle beam weapons. Admiral Carthex was confident that his overwhelming firepower would crush any resistance these mammals might offer. "Begin bombardment of the mining facilities," Carthex ordered. "Show these creatures the price of defying the hegemony." Bright lances of energy reached across space toward the human colonies. Plasma bolts and particle beams struck the first orbital platforms, testing their defensive capabilities. The human shields absorbed the initial impacts, but warning alarms began sounding throughout the system. "All stations return fire," Commander Foster ordered. The human response shocked the hegemony forces. Railguns fired solid projectiles at relativistic speeds, creating kinetic impacts that punched through alien shields like they were made of paper. The tungsten slugs, accelerated by magnetic fields to incredible velocities, carried more destructive energy than most alien weapons could generate. "Impossible readings," reported Carthex's science officer, his voice full of disbelief. "Their projectile weapons are operating at efficiency levels beyond our theoretical maximums. Our shields cannot deflect solid matter moving at these speeds." The first hegemony cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash of plasma as its reactor core was breached by human railgun fire. The massive warship that had intimidated dozens of species across the galaxy died in less than 30 seconds of combat. "With human defensive platforms, focus all fire on the lead ship," Foster commanded. "Show them what happens when they threaten human civilians." Admiral Carthex watched in horror as 2 more of his cruisers were torn apart by human weapons. The primitive mammals were supposed to have inferior technology. Their weapons were not supposed to be able to penetrate hegemony shields. Yet his proud fleet was being destroyed by creatures he had considered barely worthy of notice. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Carthex ordered, his confident voice now showing signs of panic. "Concentrate fire on their weapon platforms." But the human defenses were not limited to stationary targets. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bases throughout. The asteroid belt, piloted by men and women trained in combat techniques developed through centuries of human warfare. The small craft moved with aggressive precision that confused alien targeting systems designed to track predictable flight patterns. Captain Tony Baker led Squadron Delta in a direct assault on the hegemony formation. The former Air Force pilot grinned fiercely as he lined up his targeting computer on the nearest alien destroyer. "Control, this is Delta Leader. These lizards picked the wrong species to mess with. Human fighters carried weapons that the aliens had never encountered. Quantum torpedoes created localized space-time distortions that bypassed conventional shielding entirely. When they struck alien hulls, they didn't just explode, they briefly altered the fundamental forces holding matter together. To hegemony. Destroyers simply vanished as quantum torpedoes created cascading molecular collapses throughout their hull structures. The weapons that Earth's scientists had developed based on theoretical physics were proving devastatingly effective against enemies who relied on energy-based defenses. Admiral Stone arrived with the Fifth Fleet just as the tide of battle turned, decisively in humanity's favor. His 12 human battleships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons already charged and targeting the remaining hegemony forces. "This is Admiral Stone to all hostile forces," came his voice over the communication chay. The news of humanity's victory at Proxima spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Within days, every major civilization had received detailed reports of the battle, complete with tactical recordings and survivor testimonies from the few hegemony ships that had escaped. What the galactic powers had dismissed as impossible was now undeniable reality, captured in clear sensor data that no amount of denial could explain away. Ambassador Zethkri stood once again before an emergency session of the Galactic Council. But the atmosphere in the Great Crystal Dome had changed completely. The casual arrogance and dismissive laughter were gone, replaced by nervous chittering and worried discussions that echoed throughout the massive chamber. Representatives who had mocked his warnings 3 months earlier now hung on his every word. "The preliminary analysis of the engagement is clear," Zethkri announced, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays that showed the destruction of the hegemony fleet. "Human weapons technology exceeds our previous estimates by at least 40%. Their railgun systems generate kinetic energy levels that our shielding technology cannot deflect. More importantly, their tactical coordination suggests military experience far beyond what their apparent technological age would indicate." Council Leader Morden's crystalline form pulsed with colors that indicated deep concern. "How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated that humans had only basic energy weapons and primitive defensive systems." "Our intelligence was wrong," Zethkri replied bluntly. "We made the same mistake that has destroyed civilizations throughout galactic history. We saw what we expected to see rather than what was actually there. Humans do not follow normal patterns of technological development because they are not a normal species. On Earth, President Laura Mitchell convened an emergency cabinet meeting in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House. The underground facility had been designed to survive nuclear warfare, but now it hosted discussions about conflicts on a galactic scale that its builders had never imagined. Around the polished conference table sat the most brilliant military and political minds that humanity could assemble. General Chris Parker spread holographic star charts across the table, showing the positions of major alien fleets throughout known space. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs was a career soldier who had spent 30 years preparing for wars that might never come. Now he faced the possibility of warfare beyond anything in human experience. "Madam President, our intelligence networks indicate significant military mobilization among several major powers." Parker reported, his weathered face grim. The Nexus Collective has begun moving battle fleets toward our borders. The draconic Imperium is activating reserve forces that have been dormant for decades. Most concerning, these civilizations are attempting to coordinate their efforts. Secretary of Defense Patricia Wells leaned forward, her expression showing the strain of managing Earth's response to an unprecedented crisis. Our analysts believe they're planning a coordinated strike designed to eliminate what they now perceive as a threat to galactic stability. The irony is that their aggressive response is creating the very danger they claim they want to prevent, President. Mitchell studied the displays showing alien fleet movements throughout the galaxy. As a former senator who had spent years dealing with international crises, she understood how quickly diplomatic situations could spiral out of control. But this was beyond anything human leaders had ever faced. "What is our current military readiness?" she asked. Admiral Stone, newly promoted after his victory at Proxima, answered without hesitation. "We have significant advantages that these alien civilizations don't understand, Madam President." Human military doctrine evolved through thousands of years of warfare against enemies as intelligent and resourceful as ourselves. We learned to win through innovation, adaptation, and determination. These aliens achieved dominance by overwhelming technologically inferior opponents with superior firepower. Dr. Helen Carter, Director of Advanced Weapons Research, activated additional displays showing Earth's latest military projects. Our quantum torpedo production is ahead of schedule. The new plasma lance systems are entering testing phases. Most importantly, our adaptive shielding technology should provide protection against energy weapons that these aliens have never encountered. "Explain adaptive shielding," the President requested. "Traditional alien shields operate on fixed frequencies," Carter explained. "They're designed to deflect energy weapons that use predictable wavelengths. Our new systems can shift their protective frequencies in real time, adapting to incoming threats automatically. It's like having armor that becomes stronger every time it's hit." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien leaders were discovering that preparing for war against humans presented unexpected challenges. In the Nexus Collective's Central Command Complex, Strategic Coordinator Velnash struggled with problems that had never occurred in previous conflicts. "The hegemony forces favor direct frontal assault tactics," Velnash reported to the Council of Minds. "The Draconic Imperium prefers long-range bombardment strategies. The Ethereal Union wants to use psionic warfare to control human minds. Integrating these different approaches against an enemy that has already demonstrated tactical superiority presents significant complications." Emperor Vexilon of the Draconic Imperium studied battle recordings in his private chambers aboard the massive Dreadnought Devastator. The ancient ruler had conquered 17 star systems during his 1,000-year reign, but the humans presented challenges unlike anything in his experience. "These mammals fight like cornered predators," he observed. To his war council, "Notice how they concentrate firepower on individual targets instead of spreading their attacks across our entire formation. See how they use their smaller ships to exploit gaps in our defensive lines. Our standard battle doctrines assume that enemies will respond predictably to superior force." High Commander Silthara, leader of the Imperial Guard, nodded gravely. "My lord, our intelligence reports indicate that human colonies throughout their territory are being rapidly fortified. They are not responding like conquered subjects should. Instead, they appear to be preparing for extended warfare." Back on Earth, humanity was indeed preparing for war on a scale never before imagined. The industrial capacity that had once produced consumer goods was rapidly converting to military production. Shipyards in Earth orbit, Luna City, and the Mars colonies worked around the clock to expand the human fleet with vessels specifically designed for combat against alien technologies. Admiral Stone stood in the command center of Titan Station, humanity's new military headquarters orbiting Saturn. The facility had been completed in record time, its construction driven by the urgent need to coordinate defenses across dozens of star systems. Status report. Stone requested from his operations staff. Colonel Sam Wright, the station's tactical coordinator, consulted multiple data streams from across human space. Fleet expansion is proceeding faster than projected. We now have 47 operational battleships with 18 more completing final tests. Fighter production has exceeded targets by 30%. Most importantly, our intelligence gathering operations are providing detailed information about alien fleet movements and communication protocols. The intelligence operations were proving more successful than anyone had hoped. Commander Amy Rodriguez led a specialized reconnaissance unit aboard the stealth ship Shadow, gathering information that would prove crucial in the coming conflict. Her team had discovered that alien communication systems, while sophisticated, used encryption methods that human computers could decode with relative ease. Their security protocols are impressive but predictable, Rodriguez reported during a secure briefing with Earth Command. They're using mathematical principles that we solved 2 centuries ago. We can intercept and decode their tactical communications in real time, giving us advance warning of their strategies. The psychological warfare had already begun, though. Neither side fully understood its impact. Recordings of the Proxima battle, along with carefully edited displays of human military capabilities, appeared on galactic information networks, despite alien attempts to suppress them. The message was clear: humanity would not be easily conquered. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the new flagship Enterprise, reviewed intelligence reports in his ready room. The advanced warship represented the pinnacle of human engineering, incorporating lessons learned from studying captured alien technology while maintaining the aggressive design philosophy that made human ships so effective. Commander Harper, what's the latest from our diplomatic contacts? Morrison asked his executive officer. Lisa Harper consulted her secure communication pad, her expression troubled. Ambassador Zethkri reports that moderate voices in the galactic community are being overwhelmed by war factions. The battle at Proxima convinced many alien leaders that humans represent an existential threat to their civilizations. Are we? Morrison asked quietly. Harper considered the question carefully. Not if they leave us alone, but if they force us into a galactic war. We'll do whatever it takes to protect human worlds. That might end up changing the balance of power, P. 6 months after the Proxima incident, the galaxy had divided into 2 armed camps preparing for the largest military conflict in recorded history. The major alien powers had formed the Grand Coalition, commanding over 800 warships and trillions of soldiers from dozens of species. Against them stood humanity, with fewer than 100 ships but weapons and tactics that had already proven their deadly effectiveness. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Enterprise, studying holographic displays that showed enemy fleet movements across 7 sectors. The sleek warship represented everything humanity had learned about space combat, bristling with weapons that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Morrison had been promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander after his diplomatic efforts had failed to prevent the coming war. Status report, Commander Harper, Morrison requested. Lisa Harper consulted her tactical displays, her green eyes reflecting the concern that all human military leaders felt as they faced impossible odds. Long-range sensors detect massive fleet buildups in 7 sectors. The Nexus Collective has assembled over 300 vessels in the Kepler region. The Draconic Imperium is mobilizing their entire home fleet near the galactic core. Intelligence suggests they're planning coordinated attacks on our most important colonies. On Earth, President Mitchell faced the most difficult decision in human history. The alien coalition had delivered an ultimatum demanding humanity's complete surrender and withdrawal to their home system. The alternative was total war against enemies who outnumbered human forces 8-1. Madam President, General Parker reported during the emergency cabinet meeting, our defensive preparations are as complete as time allows. Every human colony has been fortified with the latest weapons systems. Our fleet is positioned to respond quickly to attacks on multiple fronts. But we must face the reality that we're about to fight the largest military coalition ever assembled. Secretary. Wells activated displays showing human industrial capacity. Our shipyards have produced 43 new battleships in the past 6 months. Fighter production has exceeded all previous records. Most importantly, our new weapon systems are ready for combat deployment. Dr. Carter presented her latest innovations with the pride of a scientist whose theories were about to be tested in the crucible of warfare. The quantum torpedo arrays are operational on all major vessels. Our plasma lance batteries can penetrate any known shielding technology. The adaptive defensive systems should provide protection against energy weapons that operate on predictable frequencies. President Mitchell studied the faces around the table, seeing determination mixed with the natural fear that came from facing such overwhelming opposition. Are we making the right choice? Could we negotiate some form of peaceful coexistence? Admiral Stone, participating via secure holographic link from his command station near Jupiter, answered with the blunt honesty that had made him humanity's most trusted military leader. Madam President, these aliens didn't form this coalition to negotiate. They formed it to eliminate what they perceive as a threat to their dominance. If we surrender now, we'll spend the rest of human history under alien control. Our children will grow up as subjects of species that see us as dangerous animals to be contained. The alien coalition was discovering that coordinating such a massive force presented unexpected challenges. In the Nexus Collective's command sphere, strategic, Coordinator Vel Nash struggled with communication problems that had never occurred in previous conflicts. The hegemony commanders insist on using frontal assault tactics that proved disastrous at Proxima, Vel Nash reported to the Council of Minds. The draconic forces want to maintain long-range bombardment formations that prevent effective coordination with our close combat specialists. The Ethereal Union believes their psionic warfare capabilities will render all other tactics unnecessary. Emperor Vexilon reviewed tactical plans aboard his flagship Devastator, growing increasingly frustrated with the Coalition's inability to develop unified strategies. His 1,000 years of military experience had taught him that victory required more than superior numbers. These humans fight differently than any enemy we have faced, he explained to his war council. They use combined arms tactics that integrate different weapon systems for maximum effectiveness. They adapt their formations during battle based on enemy responses. Most importantly, they seem to have no fear of enemies who outnumber them. High Commander Silthara studied recordings of human training exercises that intelligence operatives had managed to obtain. My lord, their pilots execute maneuvers that our flight computers calculate as impossible. Their soldiers coordinate attacks with precision that suggests extensive combat experience. These mammals have spent their entire evolutionary history fighting wars against equally intelligent opponents. Meanwhile, humanity was making final preparations for a conflict that would determine whether their species survived as an independent civilization. Industrial production had shifted entirely to military purposes, with factories on Earth, Luna, Mars, and the outer colonies working continuously to produce weapons and spacecraft. Ben Collins, now commanding regional defense forces, across 12 star systems, coordinated with civilian leaders who had volunteered to support military operations. The former colony administrator had learned that human civilians could be just as dangerous to invading forces as regular military units. Every settlement has been equipped with hidden weapon caches, Collins reported during a secure conference with Earth Command. Civilian populations have been trained in guerrilla warfare tactics. If the aliens occupy our worlds, they'll face constant resistance from people who have everything to lose. Dr. Rodriguez, serving as intelligence coordinator for the frontier regions, had developed networks that provided early warning of alien movements. Our monitoring stations report massive energy signatures throughout enemy-controlled space. They're charging weapon systems and preparing for simultaneous attacks. Based on their formation patterns, we estimate they'll begin their offensive within 72 hours. Captain Tony Baker led the expanded fighter training program from the secret base hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The Baha'i veteran pilot had developed new combat techniques specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in alien technology and tactics. Our fighters are faster and more maneuverable than anything the aliens field, Baker explained to his squadron leaders. Their targeting systems are designed to track predictable flight paths. We've trained our pilots to fly in patterns that their computers can't follow. Hit them hard, move fast, and never give them a stationary target. The psychological warfare had intensified as both sides prepared for battle. Human intelligence services had discovered that many alien species were questioning the wisdom of attacking a civilization that had already demonstrated superior military capabilities. Covert operations were spreading doubt throughout the coalition ranks. Commander Rodriguez's intelligence teams had infiltrated alien communication networks, spreading carefully crafted propaganda that highlighted the costs of the coming war. Many aliens are beginning to understand that victory against humans will require massive casualties that their governments haven't admitted to their populations, she reported. Some species are reconsidering their participation in the coalition. Ambassador Zethkri maintained secret contact with human leaders, providing intelligence that could prove crucial in the coming battles. The Vorthak diplomat met with Admiral Morrison on the neutral trading station Deep Space 7 for what both knew might be their final peaceful meeting. The coalition fleet will begin its attack in 60 hours, Zethkri reported. They plan to strike 7 human colonies simultaneously, believing that multiple targets will prevent you from concentrating your defenses effectively. Morrison nodded gravely. Ambassador, I want you to understand that when this war begins, it won't end until one side achieves total victory. Humans don't fight limited conflicts when our survival is at stake. What do you mean? Zethkri asked, though his compound eyes suggested he already suspected the answer. We won't just defend our colonies, Morrison replied. We'll carry the war to them. Every species that participates in this coalition will discover that attacking humanity has consequences that reach all the way to their homeworlds. The final preparations revealed the fundamental difference between human and alien approaches to warfare. The coalition planned to use overwhelming force to crush human resistance quickly, expecting victory through superior numbers and firepower. They had calculated that destroying several major human colonies would force Earth to surrender rather than face total extinction. Human planners had reached very different conclusions. Admiral Stone's staff had developed strategies that turned the coalition's advantages into weaknesses. The aliens' massive fleets required complex supply lines that could be disrupted. Their diverse species had different strengths and weaknesses. That could be exploited. Most importantly, their commanders had never faced enemies who fought back with equal intelligence and determination. Dr. Carter's weapons research had produced innovations that would surprise the attacking forces. The enemy expects us to use the same basic technologies they've seen before, she explained to the President's Science Council. The invasion began at exactly 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Across 7 human star systems, the largest armada in galactic history emerged from hyperspace like a dark tide of metal and death. 800 alien warships from 6 different civilizations descended upon human colonies with the intention of ending the human problem once and for all. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Enterprise as the first wave of enemy ships appeared near Earth. The massive alien fleet stretched across space like a deadly constellation, their combined firepower theoretically capable of destroying entire worlds. Morrison had seen many battles during his career, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of so many enemy vessels gathered in one place. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, he announced over the fleet communication system. Today, we face the largest military force ever assembled against a single species. But remember who we are. We are the children of Earth, the species that conquered its own planet through determination and courage. These aliens think they understand warfare. They're about to learn what humans do to enemies who threaten our families. The opening exchange of fire lit up space around Earth with brilliant flashes of energy and destruction. Alien plasma cannons and particle beam weapons reached across the void toward human defensive positions, their advanced technology creating displays of power that had conquered dozens of civilizations. But the human response shocked the attacking forces beyond anything their commanders had expected. Human railguns fired solid projectiles at speeds that approached the speed of light, creating kinetic impacts that punched through alien shields, like they were made of paper. The quantum torpedoes that Dr. Carter's team had developed proved even more devastating, creating localized space-time distortions that bypassed conventional defenses entirely. When these weapons struck alien hulls, they didn't just explode, but briefly altered the fundamental forces holding matter together. Emperor Vexilon watched from his command throne aboard the Devastator as 3 draconic dreadnoughts simply vanished in cascading quantum collapses. The 1,000-year-old ruler had conquered 17 star systems during his reign, but he had never seen weapons that could make matter cease to exist. "What manner of technology is this?" he demanded from his science officers. "Our sensors detect no energy signatures before impact. How are they creating weapons that ignore our defensive systems?" The answer came from human innovation born of desperation and determination. While alien civilizations had advanced through gradual technological progress over thousands of years, humans had compressed centuries of military development into decades of intense research. They had not just caught up to alien technology, but had leaped beyond it in crucial areas. Captain Tony Baker led Reaper Squadron in a direct assault on the Nexus Collective formation. The veteran pilot grinned fiercely as he maneuvered his fighter, through gaps in the alien defensive screen that their computers had calculated as impossible to navigate. "Control, this is Reaper Leader," Baker announced over the communication system. "These crystal heads thought they could intimidate humans. With superior numbers. Time to show them why Earth's children don't surrender." Human fighters moved with an aggression and tactical flexibility that bewildered alien commanders. The small craft executed maneuvers that violated several species' understanding of survivable forces, their pilots pushing their machines and themselves beyond normal limits through pure determination and superior training. The Ethereal Union had brought their most advanced psionic warfare ships, expecting to control human minds and turn the defenders against each other. But when they attempted to project their mental influence toward human vessels, they encountered something they had never experienced before. "Impossible readings," reported Ethereal Commander Sylvana from her containment field aboard the Mind. Control Ship Whisper. "These mammals possess natural mental defenses that our psionic attacks cannot penetrate. Their thought patterns operate on frequencies we cannot influence." Human resistance to mental control came from an unexpected source. Thousands of years of warfare against their own species had given humans psychological defenses that alien psionics could not overcome. The same stubborn independence that had driven human conflicts throughout history now protected them from alien mental attacks. Admiral Stone commanded the defense of the Mars colonies from his flagship Liberty, facing a hegemony force that outnumbered his ships 4-1. The veteran commander had studied the recorded tactics from the Proxima battle and developed new strategies specifically designed to exploit alien weaknesses. "All units, Formation Delta 7, Stone ordered. "We're going to use their size against them. Let them come to us." The human fleet suddenly dispersed into patterns that appeared chaotic to alien observers, but followed precise mathematical calculations. The attacking ships found themselves drawn into pursuit formations that exposed their flanks to crossfire from hidden weapon platforms positioned throughout the asteroid belt. It was a trap within a trap, utilizing three-dimensional thinking that the aliens' traditional combat doctrine had not prepared them for. Admiral Carthex, commanding the hegemony forces, watched in horror as his ships were destroyed by weapons firing from directions his tactical computers had not predicted. "These mammals fight without honor," Carthex protested over the communication channels. "They use deception and hidden weapons instead of meeting us in open battle." Admiral Stone's response came back immediately, broadcast on all frequencies so every alien commander could hear it. "We fight to win, Admiral. If you wanted honor, you should have stayed home instead of threatening human children." The battle around the Proxima system had become a nightmare for the Nexus collective forces. Commander Rick Foster, now commanding an entire defensive fleet, coordinated attacks that confused alien targeting systems designed to track predictable enemy movements. "Target their command ships," Foster ordered his weapon operators. "Their formations depend on centralized control. Cut off the head and the body dies." Human plasma lance batteries engaged alien command vessels with devastating effect. The concentrated energy beams operated on frequencies that disrupted alien communication systems, effectively blinding the enemy formations and leaving individual ships unable to coordinate their attacks. Dr. Rodriguez, now commanding intelligence operations from her stealth ship Shadow, had intercepted alien communication codes and was feeding false information into their tactical networks. Enemy commanders found themselves receiving contradictory orders that led to confusion and friendly fire incidents. "Their encryption protocols are more advanced than we initially thought," Rodriguez reported to Fleet Command. "But they still follow logical patterns that our computers can predict. We're feeding them false sensor data that makes our ships appear in different locations than where they actually are." The psychological impact of human tactics was proving as devastating as their weapons. Alien forces that had expected to crush primitive mammals through superior firepower found themselves outmaneuvered by enemies who seemed to anticipate their every move. Ambassador Zethkri observed the battle from his neutral vessel, transmitting reports to the few civilizations that had remained outside the conflict. "The Coalition made a fundamental error in understanding human capabilities," he reported. "These mammals do not fight to capture territory or gain resources. They fight for survival, and a species fighting for survival will use every tool, every strategy, and every advantage available to them." As hours passed, the tide of battle became undeniable. Human losses, while significant, were far lower than any projection had suggested. Alien casualties mounted exponentially as their rigid tactics proved inadequate against human adaptability and determination. The turning point came when Admiral Morrison made a decision that would echo through galactic history for centuries. Rather than simply defending human space, he ordered a counterattack directly against the alien staging areas in neutral territory. "All fleets, this is Morrison," the Admiral announced. "We're not just defending our homes today. We're ending this threat permanently. Attack Formation Alpha. We're taking the fight to them." The sight of human warships pursuing fleeing alien vessels back toward their own territory sent shockwaves through every civilization monitoring the battle. The species that had been dismissed as primitive mammals were now dictating terms to empires that had ruled space for thousands of years. Emperor Vexilon found his mighty devastator surrounded by human ships that moved with predatory precision. The ancient ruler faced a choice between destruction and surrender, options that no alien commander had expected to consider when the invasion began. "Human Admiral," Vexilon transmitted, his voice carrying none of its earlier arrogance. "The Draconic Imperium requests terms for ending this conflict." Morrison's response was broadcast throughout the battle zone, reaching every alien commander still fighting. "The terms are simple, Emperor. Complete withdrawal from human space, reparations for the colonies you attacked, and a guarantee that no alien civilization will threaten human worlds again." The final phase of the battle saw alien fleets retreating toward their home territories with human forces in pew.